Terrific. Well, it's my pleasure to welcome everyone, and throughout I'll just let everyone know kind of who I am and why we're here. But essentially, I'm Sophia Ruffalo, and I'm the co-founder of Fembot, and we are all about women entrepreneurship strategy and women entrepreneurs making it in the world, and successfully, if I might add. We are champions and advocates for women entrepreneurs, and a big part of what we've seen is that remote workforce is a reality. Mentorship is one of the many ways that we have noticed that there are gaps in the marketplace. So one of the things we try to do is fill some of the gaps that are out there. So women face unique challenges in the marketplace, and one of them is mentorship. Some of it is support and networks, and then a number of others, including funding, which is another element of our world. And Laura, welcome. Thanks for joining. And so what we also know is the big thing that's come up, Susan and Miriam, that I've noticed is that we get a lot of questions from our members on their workforce. And so we think a big part of that is on the leadership, the managing a remote workforce, and then also the mentorship element, the kind of growth and leadership. And I want to welcome Megan, and just Megan, if you want to, Megan is in our Zoom room. So if you want to just put yourself on mute, and you'll be able to hear everything. We're recording the audio. And then Susan is letting me know as we speak that we may need to, Susan, do you want to unmute yourself and let me know what she's asking?
Oh, sure. Sorry. Yeah, the line is lost. But she said that she's trying to join Clubhouse.
Oh, okay.
And she's waiting. She's going to reserve a name for her, and we'll text it to her account is ready. But if there's an alternate way for her to get in,
yes, let me send you the link to the Zoom, and we'll have her join the Zoom, only because it'll take a few minutes for me to be able to share that with her. Oh, did I lose you? Okay, so I got pinged off. I'm going to email you the Zoom link, since I will otherwise get booted off, and then we will get right back to where we were going. And for those of you who are wondering why we're a little disorganized today, somehow my meeting time got changed, and so we had to resend all of the information to people right at the last minute. Thankfully, Susan noticed, or we would have been in a little bit of trouble, and so I just created the new room for us all. But we are all set, Susan, and I will admit her as soon as she joins, and then we can get her all started, get her all started on Clubhouse after today. So with that, as I was mentioning, and welcome to everybody who's here and in our Zoom room, I was mentioning that, women face unique challenges in the marketplace, from a leadership perspective, connections, mentorship, and that's what we're really here and talking about. And Susan, you and Mariam are experts, so just want to let everybody know, for the two of you, feel free to jump in and chat with one another as we're raising points. And also anyone in the audience who wants to pop up and ask a question, you are more than welcome to do so. And we, as I mentioned, will have some of the recording available for later. So the first thing I thought I would do is just kick us off with introductions. So maybe Susan, do you want to just let everybody know what about you, what you do, the work you're doing?
Sure. I mean, and I think the first thing that I need to tell them is that, we have been friends for longer than I'm going to admit, because we were both only 22 years old, but we may have met when we were freshmen in college. So, and that's a long time of hanging in this and really admiring all that you've done with your career. So I'm thrilled to be here today. Thank you again for inviting me. So Sophia and I both went to college in Virginia, and after school, I wound up working for one of the big 5 consulting firms. It was Anderson, now it's Accenture. And I worked there for 4 years. And the whole time I was there, I had some great bosses, great experience, and I had some really opposite situations. And so I've had people that I couldn't wait to get to work to see, and I had people that I would cry when I thought about going to work, and that didn't feel so great. While I was there, I knew I wanted to go back to school, but first I thought I would go for my doctorate. And got into some great programs, but had what I think everyone maybe after a certain age calls a quarter-life crisis, deferred all of those, spent the next year thinking about what else could I do besides spending 5 years in school, and ultimately wound up going for a master's degree in leadership. This was before executive coaching was anything, and now it's a very different thing. But I thought, hey, why don't I go to school and make it my job to help bosses be better bosses? Because no one should have to go to work and spend 50, 60 hours of their life every week working for a jerk. And so that's what I did. I wound up I went to Harvard and not the business school. I actually have an education degree, but I was able to take courses at the Kennedy School, at the B School. I interned at what is now Korn Ferry. I had an amazing experience there. And after that, I went back out in the world, and I wound up doing some consulting, working internally in some companies, and then kind of did a hybrid where I would do some consulting and be an internal advisor for some companies. Ultimately starting to teach on the side. Somebody said, this is a fun thing to do, and I really do like working with how people learn. So I wound up teaching a little bit for like night courses, and slowly, as things progressed, I wound up, getting married, kids. My son was finally in full day school, and I looked at my husband. I was like, you know what? I think I like more than the consulting. I think I like the teaching. So when I was, again, 22 plus a few years, I went back to school and finally earned my doctorate just a couple of years ago, actually, and wrote my entire dissertation on the area of flexible work arrangements, specifically how flexible work arrangements and supportive supervisory behaviors enable women to work. Now, that sounds cool all by itself, I'm sure, especially knowing our audience. But I'll tell you this, it was about a year ago when a colleague and I looked at each other, or didn't look at each other because we were working remotely already. And we said, an article that we were developing for Harvard Business Review, why don't we change it a little bit and talk about just managing remote work in general? And we were really, really lucky because the article we submitted was published in March of 2020. And its title was something like How to Manage Your Newly Remote Workforce. And long and short, it became one of the publication's most read articles last year. So this was like a kickoff. I mean, I'm working now full-time at Bentley. I'm a lecturer there. I love what I do every day, and I get to write. And I have had a great demand for the articles that I'm working on that are about working remotely, how you can support the women, or how you as women feel like you need to be supported by your employers. And general and specific, but that's my true passion. And it's come from all those years ago, right after college, when I worked for a consulting house and had some great bosses and some bosses that were jerks. So that's me.
I love it, Susan. I love the concept of bosses that were jerks, because we leadership and mentorship are half the the name of the game here, and what we're talking about today. And so how to not be the bosses who are jerks, and also how
Yeah.
to have have a workforce that doesn't feel like we're jerks, whether we're in the corporate world or in the entrepreneurship world. So appreciate the story. Miriam, what can you tell us? Tell us the fun things about you that you would love for us to know.
So first, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on this panel, and congrats, Susan, on the article. I probably read it last year. Maybe not. I shared it for my business. So congrats on that. I love the story and background, how you ended up where you are today. So my name is Mariam Huss. As you can hear, I have a little bit of an accent. I am originally from France. So I can talk about the different leadership style between Europe or France in particular versus North America. I own Axxum Consulting. So I'm the founder of a management consulting firm. We specialize in human capital, operations and strategy, but really the core of our business is human capital. So anything related to change management, leadership, learning and development, diversity, equity, inclusion, anything related to people. People are really at the core of what we do. And like Susan, I grew up with the Big Four. So I worked for KPMG and EY, Ernst & Young, for those who are a little bit older. And really, I love this topic because we all know that women have been so much impacted by, COVID-19, the remote work. So many women had to just leave the workforce because of, taking care of your children. Myself, I have 2 children, but thank God they went back to school. So that was helpful, and I have help. But we can talk more about it if you want to ask about, how can you manage working remotely and having kids at home versus being on site. So I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight.
We have so much to talk about now, Mariam. I don't think you could need a bigger francophile than me, maybe Sophia, and at the same time, the management consulting thread. So I am so excited to virtually be here with you.
Thank you, me too.
Mariam, so Susan and I spent a fair bit of time together in Paris, and so,
Nice.
so I can't consider myself a francophile. I will.
Wow.
One day I will go at that. But I would love to hear, as it relates to sort of leadership, remote workforce, mentorship, your why. And I think you touched on it, but would love to hear just a little bit more. And anyone in the audience, feel free to jump up and put your hand up. All you have to do is raise the hand, tap the hand, and you're welcome to ask a question, and we will have you up on stage to ask a question. But and in the chat in the Zoom, feel free to ask any questions you have. But maybe Miriam, I'll stay with you for a second and ask you about your why.
So for me, it all comes to trust. As a leader, having people working remotely, because we know some people are already back at the office, but some some people do want to have a hybrid, mode. So having maybe 2 days a week from home, and then 2 to 3 days a week at the office, so you can have a balance. Because it's also good for your mental health, I think, to just get out of the house. But everybody is different. But just coming back to leadership, to me, the first word that comes to my mind is trust. If you trust your employees, your workforce, it doesn't matter where they are. You do have some jobs where they have to be on site, right? If you're talking about manufacturing jobs or, essential workers working in a grocery store, things like that. But corporate America, corporate office, or us as consultants, you can do that remotely. So if you trust your partners, your consultants, your employees, you don't have to have these people, on site. I've heard so many stories from employees or leaders who either don't trust, their employees, and it's just, it's a catastrophe, right? Because they don't trust their employees, and it's just more work for the employees and more work on the leader. And so that's what I would say.
Oh, I love that. Susan, you're going to jump in, so I'm not going to jump in. You go for it.
Just getting used to this thing. Well, first off, I would say that I agree 1,000% with what Mariam just said. I don't think that there's enough. I don't think people really know what they're doing in this space a lot of the time. And this space is basically like anything and everything about going to work nowadays. We used to, a year ago, you had like your routine and you said, okay, I know what's expected of me. And now everything is thrown up. It was like a ticker tape parade of rules, and there aren't any. And then who are you supposed to look to? And how are we supposed to ask a question to? You're supposed to pretend like you know everything. I use the term a lot, emotional labor. And it's a little academic, but it really makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Like, we can say I'm pushing something up a hill or I'm pulling something, but that's labor, right? But emotionally speaking, I swear to goodness, all we have done is try to like keep a smile on our faces and keep our stuff together, and stuff with an SH, stuff kind of thing. And who are we supposed to ask? And who's supposed to help us? We're supposed to just get it, but we don't. So if you trust your boss, if you trust your organization to say, we're going to do the right thing by you, then all right, you're going to feel good about whatever you do. If you don't, you might feel like, well, they duped me, or they're getting more out of me or I'm putting more work into this than I'm getting out of it. There's just a bunch of ways that you could feel badly. So I agree with everything she just said. And I'll say this, like my journey to why I mentioned already, I've had enough bad bosses, but into that also, when you know that you're going to be writing, 500-600 pages of document, and you're going to be spending 3 years of your life researching it, you have to find a topic you truly are passionate about. And I have been a working mother for, almost 14 years at this point, with my oldest. And I have been a woman my whole life. And I would say that I've been looking at what I've gone through and what all of us have gone through. It's just kind of an era of crazy. So now I'm happy that I'm in this space of helping people understand flex work, remote work, and I'm happy that people ask me advice, because believe me, I have women I've been asking for advice for a long time. So whether I'm a formal mentor or if I'm just somebody feels that they can trust, get an honest answer out of, it feels good to be that person. It feels good to be, in a space where I can invest my time because I'm paid to research stuff and then tell people what they could do. And it feels good that I'm not leading them down any kind of self-serving road either. I get nothing out of anything except for the fact that I feel like I'm helping what would have been me when I didn't have any place to look or ask. So that's my way.
There's one thing before you jump in, Sophia, that I wanted to ask you, Susan, and even people on the audience, because I've heard that too. It's harder to get, it's hard when you're remote from a mentorship perspective, because when you're at the office, you can just knock at the door or try to grab a lunch or a coffee with your boss or your future boss and try to navigate all the politics. But if you're remote, that's really hard. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, I agree. Right. It's 100% new challenge. Here's the interesting thing. So I work with both undergraduates and graduates, and they are showing me the way. I always say I'm a better professional because I'm a teacher, and I'm a better teacher because I'm a professional. So they will do things like, excuse me, professor. They'll send me a chat at the beginning of a Zoom, and they're like, do you have 3 minutes after class that we could talk? I say yes to everybody. Anyone who wants my time. And then they'll say, I really have these questions. Are you willing to find some more time? I don't think of myself as a scary person or intimidating person, but all professors are professors to our students, and there is a level of respect. But they know just to ask, do you have time? Can I set up a time? And I'll do that, whether it's 5 minutes at the end of a call that, I don't have anywhere else to be, or 3 minutes to set up time for another Zoom with them. And it's just simple asking, and they're finding the way. Like I said, it can be on the chat, or it can be an email, or it can be something else, but they're finding. And I personally am happy to help anyone, because I'm asking for help all the time. I should say that. Like, I try not to sound too crazy into myself. I'm happy to help, because that's what the only word I think of is. If somebody asks me for my time, I'm giving it to them. And my only hope is that in kind of like the cosmic universe, if I ask somebody for help, that they're willing to. And I think that there's so much, hope right now. I think that all of us are so hopeful that we can just be, the kindness factor is going to just keep going around. So people, I find, are saying yes to a lot of requests. And so
You're right.
if I'm saying yes, I'm hoping other people are saying yes, and we're just filling the space with positive. So
I think you're right. It's just a matter of asking, because it doesn't matter in person or remote. If you have the will and the gut, and sometimes you're right, people are just scared, but it doesn't matter. It's just the meaning that might be different. It might be just a phone call or a Zoom, or when people will get back to work, it might be a coffee or lunch. So you just need to ask. I agree 100%.
Yeah. Well, when I call you and I ask you for some time, you'll have to say yes.
I love it. I love it. We're making big statements about asking for time. And so if anyone in the audience has questions, feel free to pop up. But one of the things that I do in my secret other life is upskilling talent remotely. So it's leadership development, very particular niche of that. And a lot of what we talk about is the organic moments, and what gets lost in the organic moments, which, fun secret fact, was the inspiration behind these Clubhouse chats, because mentorship is so much of comes about so much in organic moments, and it's how do you recreate and reframe some of these organic moments, the walk and talk, the escalator, elevator rides, the grab a coffee kind of things, or the eavesdropping and happening to hear a conversation somebody's having about something, and just learning through that osmosis of being in proximity. And so being available as a leader, I love kind of those thoughts and tips of what it is you're doing. And to play off of something that you were both talking about earlier in terms of trust, I joined a tech CEOs and tech breakfast not that long ago. And there was a gentleman who immediately chimed in and said something to the effect of, we have to get back to the office because we don't know what our workers are doing. Like, it was along the lines of whether you'll have hybrid work, what you're predicting, and things like that. And I immediately spoke up first in the chat, and then I was asked to pop up and speak. And I said, if you don't know what your workforce is doing, you have failed them for 12 months, because we've been remote for a year. And if we don't know what folks are doing, it's potentially time to think about our leadership and mentorship.
Yeah. He definitely has a problem. He doesn't know what, but you know what? So we have clients where I'm hearing employees saying that they haven't heard from their boss within months. You would think that, in the remote world, you would reach out to your employees. Like me with my consultants, we try to have a weekly or bi-weekly breakfast or lunch or brunch over Zoom, just to catch up, to see how things are doing. You want to know what they're doing. So that's on him. So he definitely has some work to do on his leadership.
I can't. Like, this is just the number one thing people keep asking. And I mean, I'm sure, Mariam, for you, it's like gig after gig. Anyone's asking, how do I know? I'm like, what does it matter? That's my actual answer. Are they producing the results?
Exactly.
And furthermore, like, one of the big things about this is that if this is like the great equalizer, because it doesn't matter how good you are at political, like how well you can say, let's go to the driving range together, let's go to Pilates together. Now it's really just the quality of the work that they're producing. So if you're getting the work you need, that's what you manage to. And if you're not, then that's another question. But the other question is, like, again, this kindness thing. I feel like so long we were not. I mean, I'm a working mother, and I seriously, I'm like, nobody really cared. But now, if somebody's not able to get onto a meeting at noon, well, I hope that a year ago you figured this part out, kind of what your girl's point was. But like, if someone can't get on, you need, hey, is there a conflict? Is there a better time? Oh yeah, actually, my kids are on remote school, and that's the 1 hour I've got to feed them and get them ready. So the worst time for me is 12 to 1, but I could get on a call at 1:15. Okay, is it possible for you to move your meeting to 1:15? Could you have a little bit of compassion? And now we're learning that people were mothers. I bet half the time people just thought that the magic elves were taking care of our children. But now we get to know, okay, you're a whole person, and we got to take care of you as a whole person. I hope that we learn that back.
I agree. I feel like people are more understanding. And we've seen so many kids or dogs, or I heard parrots. I've heard everything, in the background of a Zoom call. People, at least in North America, that's my experience. People don't care, or at least they understand that we're all home. It's been hard for everyone. So, but I would love to hear if somebody had an experience where they had negative feedback, if they had the kids or even a dog or whatever.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, definitely raise your hand. In our Zoom room, we've got some things, some positives that were shared. So Patrice said that in her organization, they run executive outreach forums in the form of skip level meetings, formal and informal upskilling sessions, which is terrific and near and dear to my heart. And then the CEO also runs weekly town halls with one meeting a month with open questions forum that has been tremendous in driving engagement. So we're getting positives on that.
That's great.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Weekly, that's a lot. That's really good.
It helps, and just along this line before we go to that, to Patrice's point, that transparency and availability, are you seeing that has been helping companies and from a productivity and an employee satisfaction standpoint at all? I mean, I have on my end, but curious.
Yes. So the clients that I have, when they've been transparent, communicating, what was happening, they're even right now, most of the clients or people that I know on the leadership level, they're right now starting to build the return to work plans. Most of the, at least what I've seen, it looks like they're trying to have people, coming back in September. So there's been a lot of communications, and employees appreciate that, and they give the option. I haven't heard yet any companies that saying it's mandatory, you have to come back in September. They're all giving options. And to be honest with you, from what I've seen, because I've been asking to CHROs or leadership level, what are your employees saying? Most of them do not want to come back even in September. And you would think, because it's hard mentally to just be home all day, every day. You need a break to get out. At least that's for me. But surprisingly, people don't want to go back. And I guess it depends maybe on the cities. I'm based out of Chicago. And so people don't want to take public transportation. Maybe if they're driving, that's different, because you don't have to, have that much exposure. And the other thing that I've seen is a lot of companies are rearranging the workspace so that people can go in closed offices or they're not close to each other. So I think the cubicles are done. That's my opinion, but we'll see. Would love to hear other thoughts.
It's funny. I watched an entire presentation on workspace, and the presentations, 3 semesters ago would have been about different innovative workspace, and now they were like, and what does workspace look like in hybrid? I mean, it was a whole, honest to goodness, really cool indoctrination since my students have put concerted effort into it. I think that Mariam's examples are really dead on, and the other thing I was going to say about how things have transitioned, maybe not so much about productivity, but about people feeling more comfortable working and the way they can. I mean, my own team has held 2 of our little, what are they called, like cocktail hours, happy hours, and they hit on Rosh Hashanah, and then they hit on Passover. I was like, I can't, it's a holiday. And so now I feel like maybe my boss is going to be a little more alerted to the fact that we have diversity in many, many ways, including, I like to call myself a hidden Jew with the last name like Vroman. So that now we're trying to say, okay, well, when should we be asking people for stuff? And what also should be on our calendars that wasn't before? And we're getting there. So now I can be productive in the sports that I need. And I can also feel more comfortable saying, actually, I may have used to just come to work that day and gone home to do my Seder, but now I'm going to take that whole evening off to do the Seder with my family. And I think that it's cool because I can be productive when I want to be productive and less productive on the days that I don't. And it's well more understood because they're in my home. If they're with me, they would have otherwise seen, things that are happening behind me.
I think we need to be careful though, because what I've seen again from clients and talking to employees is that because we're home, we work more hours.
Oh yeah.
Because before, with the commutes, you were at the office for 8:39 and 4:35, 6 max, you're gone, and then you're gone. Depending on your position in the company, you may have to work a little bit sometimes at night, but that was not like now where you can start your day as early as 7 a.m. or even before. I'm an early bird, so I start very early in the morning before sometimes at 6. And then you go all the way to 5, 6 p.m. Then you take care of the kids and you go back. And you're like, my gosh, I'm working 14 hours a day every day. That's too much. So that's, I think, something that we need to be conscious of. And I just wanted to point that out.
I think actually to build off of that, so all the research for as long as people have studied any sort of flexible work, which means telecommuting, work from home, work from anywhere, flex time, has always, and we're talking 30, 40 years of research, says flexibility will lead to burnout if not managed well. And we're not doing flexibility right now. We're not doing flexible work arrangements at all. We're doing remote work. Nobody had a plan. And that's so right. That's part of what the great part is, the good stuff. But anyone who goes into the next era of work, whether it's hybrid or back 100% or one way or the other, if you don't take this time right now, and I imagine, Mariam, this must be a lot of the work you're doing with HR teams, is think about it. What are your policies? What are your practices? How should this have worked? How can it work? What should we indoctrinate so that we can espouse formally a model for the work that we're doing? Without that, your leaders are all ad hoc managing. So you'll get the good ones, like we've discussed, and you'll get plenty of bad ones. I mean, even the ones who are always saying to me and you, and to you, Sophia, like, what are they doing? I'm like, well, so
they don't know.
Your leaders can do whatever they want to do because there's nothing outlined for them. Even if you give them some guidelines, if the company doesn't have a formal approach, then they need one. And that is like the number one thing is create something, espouse something formally so that the leaders will be able to enact what you espouse. If not, you're lucky if this is going right. And if so, indoctrinate it so others will do the same thing.
Yeah, you're right, because I don't think I've seen people having those, when we used to be at the office, people would have the Friday afternoon off, for summer hours, things like that. But for 2020, I haven't heard that because we're all remote, so people kept working. all day, every day. So I think you're absolutely right. Some policies and processes needs to be they need to be put in place moving forward.
It really does take a strong person. Like I said, I had 2 holidays that I said, well, I'm not going to sacrifice those. But every other night, if somebody says, do you have time, or can I please get, yep. And just like you were all saying, I am on the computer. I am now just leaving my phone in the other room on purpose. Then I can say I forgot it.
I think you both are raising something huge, and that is burnout and leadership and mentorship around that and burnout. So I have been asked actually to come in and help some companies identify burnout before it happens, by replicating sort of organic moments. So you know how you can sort of see on somebody's face the panic of exhaustion, and it's how do you identify that? But I imagine that some of the conversations that you're having with leadership teams and around workforce is potentially around a bit of the burnout conversation just generally. I'm curious, and this is generally, but if you want to stick on the burnout realm, what are you doing right now kind of in your work? What are some of the key topics, and is burnout one of them? And feel free to deviate from this element or keep going on it. And I'll open it to Miriam. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can speak for myself. I've been working like crazy hours, and I have to put a stop. And so what I've told to my consultants is, and for us, it's a little it's different because in management consulting, it's very strictly by project. But as soon as we can have a break, I've asked them to take 2 days off. And I'm very intentional, and I do talk to my consultant on a weekly basis, even sometimes on a daily basis, to make sure that they're not going to burn out, because talent, having the right team is so important. I don't want to lose them to burnout. It's just emotionally, physically, just awful. And I have a lot of also young mothers like I am with young kids. So burnout to me is not an option. Like you said, I was about to ask you, Sophia, how do you find out if somebody is on the verge of having a burnout? But actually, you're right. You just need to talk to your, employees, consultants, or colleagues. Just talking to them, they will tell you. If they trust you, they will tell you that they are at a point, and you just need to manage and set up some mitigation plans to make sure that they don't fall into burnout. Yeah. Another thing that I have is we use a tool to just record hours. So I know when they pass 40 hours a week, I just reach out to them to understand what's happening, what's going on, how can I help? Do I need to add another consultant? You're not going to work 50 hours a week every week. But to me, that's not an option. It can happen from time to time, but not. I don't want this to become just a trend or a common practice.
It's so, and Susan, I'm so interested to hear your thoughts, and there's a whole conversation also on personal days off, but burnout, absolutely right, Mariam. It's having the conversation. It's about asking not what you're working on, but what you've done in your personal time, because that is fairly telling of whether people are actually taking any time to themselves. And if they're not, you can clue into that much faster than you can clue into them having the work conversation.
Or how do you feel? How do you feel? It's a simple question. And usually I have those calls over Zoom, so I can see their face, and you can tell if the person is lying or trying to minimize. But you're right. I think it's a combination of asking, what are you working on? What's your plan for the weekend? And if they tell you I have to work, then it's a big red flag to me.
I think you guys are right. Because if you don't just listen with your ears, you listen with your eyes, right? So you have to look for the signs. The other thing I was going to add, first off, I mean, we're all tired, and heck, I mean, here it's 7:12 on the Eastern time, and my kids aren't even batting a lash because I'm like, well, dinner will be afterwards. I'm not used to eating ever. But here's the thing, like, I learned a lot from bad bosses, and I've learned a lot from good bosses. I had a boss once who'd be like, you got to take time off, but she would go to Australia, and she, I was a vice president or so, and basically I should have been trusted, but we had to submit our status reports, even though she was 13 hours ahead of us, and we were there where the client fit. And she kept checking them. I was like, you're on vacation and you're so far away, and can't you just take time off? But she wouldn't. And it's always taught me to say, when I go on vacation, I'll identify what the transition is, what are the authority guidelines, so who can make a decision without me being there. And I take off, and I literally do not bring my computer. I don't bring my phone. Most people use their camera as a phone. My phone is a camera. I use a digital camera that has no phone. I've gotten in trouble by my own boss. Because I didn't have my phone, and I didn't submit grades or something on time. And I mean, I had the dean looking for me, but my boss actually had my back. She said, Susan I was in Patagonia. She's like, Susan is on the wild. She is literally off the grid. And she said, I know that this is a mistake, but I know she'll do when she gets back. And I'm so thankful for that, letting me take 2 weeks off. But I had done everything. I thought I had done everything right. So I think one of the biggest things that I'm an advocate for is, again, leadership and acting to the values that the organization says it espouses. If the organization says that it values that you should be able to manage, not balance, but manage work and life, then the leaders have to respect that. The leaders have to be able to say, take the time you need, and I won't bother you. I will find another way around whatever the question I have is. And when I am a leader and I'm going to say, I'm going to take off for the weekend to be with my kids, do stuff, that I also do the same thing, that I focus 100% on my kids, if that's where I'm at, or 100% on a hike, and I'm not checking my work emails. Because my direct reports, my employees, whether it's my RAs or the people that I'm consulting with, they need to see that I am taking the time off because I say so. I think another thing is important is to really advocate for doing something that you're passionate with your own free time. I mean, yes, I'm a mom there too, but I also enjoy pickleball. I also enjoy exercise. I also have mindfulness practice of my own. And so when I'm shut off, I'm shut off. So I love to advocate to my own, whatever it is, students, RAs, coworkers, whatever it might be. Do what you need to do. Take care of your health. Your health is physical and mental. Be with the people you need to be with. Family first. These are like that's my code of values, right? So I say, what's important to you? Where do you need to be? I will respect that. Just tell me what it is. And so, of course, people shouldn't have to tell their boss, I really want to spend some time with my kid, but I like to know about my coworkers anyway. So usually casual conversation, I'll understand, oh, it's big games to get for your kid, or, oh, it's a big dance recital, or whatever it might be. And I'll say, I hope I don't see you overwork this weekend. Oh, and I really do hope that. So the role of the leader, and right now, is to enact the value of managing work and life possible, and to respect the boundaries, because otherwise everyone is going to work to impress. Everyone's going to be doing that thing where, you're the first in the parking lot and the last one to leave. Well, now it's just the first one to log in and the last one to log off. It doesn't impress me. So I think that that's important for, a company or rather a leader, to walk the talk and say, I want you to take the time off, and I won't be looking for you. And I'm mad at you if you are logging off, quite frankly.
I must say, I never understood, and I've been in the US for 10 years, why a lot of my American colleagues or even friends don't take their vacation, like the entire days of vacation that they have, or when they go on vacation, they work. I never, ever, ever understood that. In Europe, especially in France, summertime, August, everything is dead. People work to live. They don't live to work. That's something I never understood. But I'm glad to hear that you, just to come back to leadership, that you had your managers back. Your managers had your back, because that's very important. Again, just coming back to leadership. If you have somebody who's cheering for you when you're not there, you're good. But unfortunately, if your boss, your manager, doesn't have your back, then that's when, excuse my French, but shit hits the fan.
I wish you'd said that in French. It would have been better.
We don't have that expression in French.
Oh.
In French.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And again, this is something where I've made it known that I don't ever take less than 10 days off in a row with vacation. Next week, we have, where I live here in New England, it's April vacation week. And I've never taken a week on April because I don't even believe, I think everyone's crowded, everything's overpriced. And quite frankly, I'm going to be working. But we are able to take next week off because we're going to go someplace, we're going to be safe, and I can keep working in a warmer climate. But it's not a vacation. Like 5 days to me is not time off. I need really to reset. I need to shut off the world. So, see, I guess
2 weeks too.
Moving to Paris, that's what's going to happen next.
I am getting some notes from people saying they need to move to Paris, because I'm hearing some chatter about the fact that
Yeah, I would love to.
Oh
Go ahead, Susan.
Here I am chatting away with the mute button on the faux pas. I am getting some chats about PTO, personal time off, and the importance of it. And I'll share this. I had a boss who would tell our team not to respond to my emails while I was on vacation, because I am the guilty one who just can't get away from my phone. And so she would take matters into her own hands, and it goes back to the idea of leadership and mentorship. So she was not just my boss, but she was also a big mentor for me. And with some of our last minutes of the chat, I'd love to kind of talk a little bit about mentorship in this context, especially in this remote workforce. And hopefully maybe, as people have to do more remote, we can help keep more women in the workforce by having remote work. And so where does mentorship even fall within that? And I didn't share this question with you, so feel free to skip it.
I'm going to give my short version because I know this is about Mariam's specialties and I'm more interested in listening. So I'm going to lay my thoughts down and then listen. I'm going to just keep going back to the fact that we as leaders need to accept that we have a dual responsibility. I truly believe we are there to manage and hold people accountable, and we're there to make sure that our goals are strategically laid out and we'll get them accomplished. But then we have to be human. And so I believe, I also, Sophia, my best bosses have been mentors to me. They're the ones who would suggest things like, when you go to a work event, don't hang out with the people that you want to have a beer with. I don't think we've ever met yet. Crazy as that always seems to me in retrospect, because why would she have told me that? But she was giving me a skill, and a skill that's been very, very valuable. So I think right now, it goes back to that trust conversation. Again, that's why I'm going to lob it right back to Mariam. But if you trust the people that you're working with are with best intentions, sharing with you their ideas, modeling the way that you can emulate, then I think that we can think of the leaders as our mentors as well. And then when I ask them, may I ask you a personal question, or may I ask you a question, or may I ask your advice, I will trust that they're giving that to me in kind of the spirit of mentorship, not as boss.
So what I would say, you can go both ways. So one of our clients set up a formal mentorship program with their top 50 employees, and they did not hire executive coaches. They asked their leaders, like the C-suite and VPs, to mentor their top 50 employees. And we're there to help them through that, like facilitating, workshops and things like that. So that's one way if you want to be formal, intentional, and we're doing everything remotely. I think it's a blessing in disguise because people, like you said earlier, Suzanne, to me are more willing to say yes to a 15-minute Zoom call or even phone call where you can chat, get to know the person, and then, informally or formally mentor someone, rather than when you're in person. There's less time because you sit in a meeting for an hour, 2 hours, when the meeting could have been done in 45 minutes. This is just another topic. The other way is just having informal mentorship that would happen regardless if you're remote or in person. And again, that goes back to leadership, making sure that you talk to your colleagues, your peers, or your employees, your direct reports on a regular basis. You get to know them. You ask them problem questions to make sure that you understand where they want to go, and then you can mentor them, you can coach them, you can guide them to wherever they want to go. So to me, again, you have two ways. One could be formal, and then the other one is just the business as usual. To me, just being informal, being a good leader, and mentoring, coaching, your peers, because it could be also, horizontal. It could be your peers, your colleagues, or effectively could be your direct reports, your employees.
I love the concept. Mentorship is near and dear to my heart. I love formal and informal mentorship. And in a second, I'll ask you if you're mentoring or part of any mentorship programs, one way or the other. But the horizontal, one of the things we've talked about for those who have joined this room before, we've talked a little bit about the fact that you don't have to be an expert in everything, and you don't have to be more senior than somebody to be a mentor or have an expertise that's outside of their area. So I love hearing the concept of horizontal mentorship.
That's what I taught the leaders. I said, yes, they will learn from you, but you will learn from them as well. It's a two-way, communication, two-way learning opportunity. So yes, I agree 100%. You should be able to learn from your mentees as well. It's not just one way, around. So that's one thing. I wanted to say something else, and it just skipped my mind. So I'll let you keep talking to them, Sophia.
Oh, no. I really appreciate that.
I just remembered. Sorry, you were about to ask. So yes, in terms of mentorship, I'm the chair of a mentorship program at the French American Chamber of Commerce here in Chicago. So that's formal. Where we mentor mostly women that come to the US, they follow their husbands. Now we're inclusive, so men are also part of the program if they want to. And we help them navigating the job market in the US because it's very different from the French or European market. And then I also mentor informally all the time. That's also a passion of mine. I love, giving back. I've been very fortunate to be where I am today, building my own business. It's very successful. So I just want to give back. There's so many things I didn't know when I started, my career, around negotiating your salary, because everything is negotiable. And that I didn't know. They always tell you we have a budget, and that's not true. If they really want you, they will add a 5-10K on your annual salary. That's just one example that I learned the hard way. So that's something, again, that's really dear to my heart. I love mentoring to other female that might be younger or also older. It doesn't matter, and because I'm always learning from them as well.
I absolutely love that. Music to my ears. Susan, I know that you are very strongly affiliated with a fantastic organization, for one, amongst many other things.
Well, my mentor, yes, that one organization is truly about mentorship. It's a very different slice of life. Unfortunately, I'm active with an organization called Empower Her. And this is for girls who lose their mothers too early in life, under the age of 24. And even if their fathers remarry or on step in, we've discovered that girls really need a mother figure. And this organization sets up a series of programs, but also mentor relationships of women who lost their mothers too early in life. And it's a bond that is, it's something that we can basically say it's a bond like no other. I am blessed. My mother is still here with me. She's still one of my best friends. She's 79 years old. And you know her, Sophia. But
I do.
And she says hi. But I can tell you that, you know, the woman who's the founder is a good friend of mine. And I've met so many of the mentors, and I've become involved with this because of the work that they do. And what it does to have a mentor when you are a young girl, it's comparable to all the things that you're talking about when it is to be a professional woman and have a great mentor, but different. And I'm really, really excited to work with them. We have our Luminaria event, which is taking place in 10 different cities, kind of close to Mother's Day weekend, which is our annual fundraiser. I'm very happy to share more information, but I don't want to make a plug for it. But I am saying that is another mentoring methodology, and it is something I spend a good deal of my personal time working on, and I'm thankful for that opportunity to help girls in that.
Yeah, Susan, and you and I have talked about this, but one of the things I talk a lot about is access. And so if we don't have access to people who can act as our mentors from early in life on up, it's hard to gain the confidence even to ask people for that mentorship as we go forward. And I'm very excited about your event coming up. So maybe just if you can humor me and tell us a little bit about it.
Oh, well, thank you. So what we're doing is, you know, we don't want to do anything. COVID has certainly made us very wary and very aware of what we can and cannot do. And I'm a strong believer right now. I'm family first and health first, and especially with our organization being here about losing people too early. So what we're doing is in all of these locations, we're selling Luminaria bags. And it's a donation starting at $25, but you can donate whatever you want. And for example, I live near the ocean, and there's a jetty, and it goes out by the lighthouse. And we did this last year at kind of a last minute pivot off of not doing a gala. But we will light in memory of about Luminary in memory of, or in honor of parents, lost mothers, aunts, you know, caregivers. I'm lighting one in honor of my mother, who, as I said, is still with us. It makes a beautiful gift too. And then we will have these photos, you know, of just the jetty with the Luminaria lit at sunset. They're doing one at the Reflecting Pond in DC. I mean, they're doing them at, I think it's one of the baseball stadiums, but I forget its true name, in San Francisco. They're doing them at a beautiful farm in Texas. And it's just, you know, light up the night and think of the women that are special to us. And so that's kind of the cool event. And again, if anyone's interested and they'd like to, I think I post some stuff. I can post more stuff on LinkedIn, I suppose. Or if you're interested, they can certainly let me know. I'd love to bring as much as we can in for this. It's an event that we're doing. It's the only fundraiser we're going to do, and it's socially, you know, distanced. There'll be the volunteers are all going to make sure we're safe. It's just a way to try and raise money for this good organization.
I absolutely love it. You know, I'm a huge supporter, and you know, from an early age, having that mentorship is important. So thank you. And Mariam, do you have anything coming up that you want to tell us about? We'd love to have you share. And
oops, sorry, I was still on mute. I was trying to think, what do I have? There's so many things. I'm moderating a diversity, equity, inclusion panel on April 28th. I need to put that on Facebook. So if people want to follow me on LinkedIn. So if people want to follow me on LinkedIn, I'll advertise that. Shortly.
Oh, terrific! Yes. Part of this is for people to get to know you and support you and follow you and not hear the sound of my voice the whole time. So this was terrific. Susan, you're going to jump in.
I was just going to say, Sophia and Mariam, and there's one thing I would love to ask of your listeners, because I'm trying to do a little bit of research too, and I figured this might be an okay thing for me to ask.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We're doing a bunch of research on what has really helped, especially in the working parent sex. Like, what have you found that's been like amazing? What have you found that hasn't worked? And again, my research is usually on working parents, but to work effectively, to manage work and life. And if anyone on this Clubhouse, the call, the Zoom, however you're listening, if you are willing to, and maybe you could send it to me again, I'm on LinkedIn, you can send me a private message there. But I'm interested in like what has worked. Like I'm trying to figure out what was the golden nuggets and what we shouldn't do anymore of as working parents. Like what is your company giving you? What have you found to make working like at home work? I'm just always researching, and I figured this would be a great group to learn from, because if they're interested in hearing about us tonight, they're hopefully got a few things that they know too. And I'd really love to learn them. If that'd be okay for them to share with me, that would be truly valuable.
Absolutely. I won't call anyone by name, but Susan, if you do post this ask as well,
Yes,
elsewhere and tag me, I'll mention it, because we actually have quite a few women who have expressed some thoughts on that.
I'll reach out to you, Susan, on LinkedIn.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much, both of you.
Of course.
Thanks everyone for listening. It's hopefully helping.
Oh, it was terrific. I want to thank everyone who's still here. I know we've gone a few minutes over, and I want to thank everybody in our Zoom room. I'm just going to end the recording, and thank you.